everyone, thank you for joining SBS Group for our webcast, Dynamics GP Workflow. Today, Allison Frost will lead the webinar, and now I'll turn the presentation over to you, Allison.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining the webinar. Today I will be going, as Brittany said, over PO workflow approval. One of the probably newer features and probably the most underutilized that I've seen at our clients is the workflow. The reason why it's such a wonderful feature is because it allows users to create documents such as purchase orders and other things, GL entries, vendors, payables transactions, and requisitions, and put them through a workflow that used to be all managed through the business portal SharePoint site. In, I guess it was GP 2013 or 2015, everything started to move off of business portal and have all of that workflow and set up through the Dynamics GP interface. So you didn't have to go through their separate site. You could see all the specific tasks within Dynamics GP. You could do the approvals through GP, and some of the enhancements with the email functionality that Microsoft has built in actually do approvals through email. So emails can be generated. The hyperlinks within the emails can open up documents within GP, and provided your system is set up for it, the approval can be routed directly from the email into the workflow through the back end without users having to open up the interface. For today's demonstration, we will not be doing the approval through the email, but we will show you what the emails do look like. So I'm going to maximize my GP for my administrative user, A. Frost, so that she can see the screen a little bit better. Workflow is set up from the administrative menu, under Setup, and under the Company Workflow. So under Company Workflow is a drop-down for Workflow Maintenance. And this is where you would do all of your setup for the various modules. If you had approvals for financial, sales, purchasing series. Today we're focusing on the purchasing series for purchase order processing and purchasing approval. You'll notice that you can have approvals under purchase order, and I have set up a workflow for approvals. So the scenario that I'd like to put in front of everyone is we have a company and we have multiple departments. We have a sales and marketing area, and then we have administration. And those two areas like to submit purchase orders. But our company would like to be able to lock that down and have the approval process route to different managers for approval. So rather than having someone actually pick up or email, print a copy of a purchase order and email it to their supervisor and wait for that supervisor, we would like to be able to enter the purchase order in GP and submit it for approval and have that email automatically go to the manager depending on a number of criteria. This is where the real flexibility and power comes in, because you can set up a number of steps and route purchase orders differently. So we'll first look at our sales and marketing team. We would like the sales and marketing team for any buyer for any purchase order that has the buyer ID of buyer 1 to go through the sales and marketing, and we have a separate buyer for admin that goes to buyer 2. So sales and marketing has buyer ID, buyer 1. Who is the manager for the buyer? So the approval process is taking the document and routing it to somebody. So who's their manager? Well, the manager for the sales and marketing department is GP user 1. And so what we're saying with the first step is, for any purchase order that buyer ID 1 submits, that purchase order belongs to the sales and marketing team, so please route this to GP user 1. You'll notice on the setup screen there are a number of different things that you can do. We're saying that this is an approval task, and we're locking it down to just buyer ID number 1. What else can we do? We would like, when we're submitting this, to have an automatic email message go with this request to this manager. What kind of an email message would we like it to be? We're just going to cancel out of here for a second, and it'll open up what our message is. We would like a predefined email message to go for purchase order approval, and whatever the document really is, put wildcards in for the specific document. So we would like our company to set up a template, which there are predefined templates that come along with workflow that say what the step is, who's submitting, what the purchase order number is, so that you can take any number of fields that are available on the purchase order and substitute them just like any kind of a mail merge into this template. So we're going to have a predefined and use the predefined message of workflow approval and have that message go along to GP user 1. Some of the other enhancements that, if you're already on workflow in one of the earlier versions, or if you're new to this, there's the document attachment feature that comes along with GP 2016. Actually, it's been around since 2013, and it allows you to insert any kind of a document, PDF, Word, Excel, to an existing record. The powerful feature is, for instance, if you're sending a purchase order to a manager for approval, you can attach a copy of the quote to the PO. Now, if you mark the include document attachments from the document, that quote can go along with the email request for the approval. You also have the option of, although we've said assign it to one user, we can select who the managers are. So not only can we select a user, we can select multiple, we can select groups from Active Directory, or we can select a workflow role. Today we're just going through and selecting domain user of GP user 1. You also have the flexibility of requiring all of the assigned approvers, the majority, or just one. Today we're just selecting one. Once we have the buyer ID, is that enough? Well, for a smaller implementation, yeah, you might have 1 or 2 approvers. The purchase order comes in, the purchase order is always going to need to be approved, and it always goes to the department head. But what happens if you've got something a little bit more complicated? For instance, you have a dollar limit. So if your purchase order has more than a subtotal of $10,000, we would like you to route that to the workflow manager. So you can pick at what stage and what criteria you would like to escalate or have a hierarchy. Again, the same options are available. Do you want to send a message? So you can use the predefined, or you could create your own. Do you want to include the additional documents? What do you want to send over that quote? And who needs to respond? The group, all, the majority of them, or just the one approver? So as you can see, we have this set up for sales and marketing. I can also do the same for the admin group. in the admin group, I'd select buyer number 2. And for the admin group, if the subtotal of the PO is more than $20,000, submit that and follow through and go to the workflow manager. So how does this work in practice? I'm logged in as A. Frost, and I have access to entering purchase orders. So I'm going to create a purchase order for buyer 1, and I'm going to have that for ACE Travel. And for my ACE Travel, I'm going to select a non-inventory item. I'm just going to buy Big Ticket Club. I'm going to order 5 of these Big Ticket Club memberships, and each one of them is going to be $5,000. For 2017. Like any purchase order, you still have to fill in the required fields. But you'll notice when I try and print, I want to save the document. I cannot print this purchase order until it goes through the approval process. So what does that do for you? That prevents your buyers from printing a purchase order and sending it out to your vendor without the approval. So I can bring up my purchase order, and after I save my purchase order, I'll see an immediate status on that window that says, I need a PO approval. So I can click on the Submit button, and I can send comments to the manager who is going to approve. And for this case, I'm going to say Buyer 1. For membership. So now, I immediately get, you have a task assignment for purchase order 25. Okay, and this is for Rob Brown. He's the admin. So just a little bit about what the email window looks like. You'll notice that when you set up that workflow and it looked like a really ugly template, it's really kind of cool because it says what step. This is the dollar limit step that was applied for. It was to go to Rob Brown. Here's the purchase order. Here's the vendor, the document, its subtotal, and you can even include the line details. So because we couldn't print out the purchase order, we would like that approver to be able to see what they're actually approving. Okay, so that's what your emails will look like. When I log on and I say to approver number 1, when a GP user 1, who was the manager, logs into GP, because they have the task to-do list up, we can see that, oh, there's a task. So even if they didn't have their Outlook open, they can still see what POs need to be approved, and the hyperlink on their task list will open up the purchase order. So GP user 1 needs to approve this. They can look at the PO. If there were an attachment to that document, they could open up that attachment. When they're done, if they would like to approve it, they can click on the Approve button. If they need to reject it, they can reject it, and they get to send an email message back to AJ. Say, this is not approved. Where is the attachment? So they don't have to go back out to email. They can just attach a message that'll go back to Allison when she opens up her message, when she opens up GP again, or checks the comments on the purchase approval. So where are my attachments? Okay, sorry, GP user 1, I forgot the attachment. I need to go out to my document and I need to attach a copy of the quote for Ace Travel. And I say, okay, so this is standard document attachment. Again, for those who haven't used the document attachment feature, you can scan and attach at the same time. GP 2016 will allow you, if you have a multi-feeder, paper feeder for your scanner, will allow you to scan multiple pages at one time and attach them to the document. In this case, we just picked a Word doc, but you could do PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, anything you need, and just click on OK. So now when I resubmit, I can say, here is, oops, here is your copy of the quote. Resubmit. And I should hear my email in a second. So now you can see that when Rob Brown opens up the email, he can actually open up the Word document that we attached. This is really handy if you need to hold, if your approval is really looking at that quote, you now don't have to go out, find the quote on your hard drive or somewhere out on the network, open up Outlook, attach it, and do everything separately. It's all in one step. These are just core features of the product. There's nothing additional that needs to be purchased or additional modules for reg keys. This is all core functionality. So now, if I look at my home screen for Allison Frost, and I hit refresh, you can see that I still have this PO that needs approval. It's the same standard message. If I go in to the system as user 1, I can click on it, on the hyperlink. It says that I need to approve it. I can open up from my email, because I would have gotten an email as well, look at the attachment, look at the quote. If I didn't want to open the quote, if I don't feel like going back to email, I can just open up and preview the attachment from within GP. Here's an example of the PO attachments. That looks good. I'm just going to close this Word document. And now I can go through my workflow and I can approve it. And if I have a message, please send me a copy of the PO when you are done, as I need more my records. Okay. And now I get. Now again, Rob Brown has to go in and he needs to approve that purchase order as Rob Brown. But you'll notice that there's a different step. So the first step was, well, Rob Brown's always the dollar limit, because that's the email that's getting sent to me. For any of the others, their task for the first step would have been, you just need to approve this. So Rob Brown is the second guy on the chain, and he needs to approve it. So some of the other things that you can do with the workflow, not only can you access from within, but if you were actually the person setting up, again, it's under Admin, Company Workflow, Workflow Maintenance. you can add additional steps underneath. So if you had the $10,000 for a limit on step 1, which would be the sales and marketing, but now you needed to add another step, you could do that as well. So you can do new step. Because I've activated, I can't add a new step at this point, but you can add a new step the same way underneath and say what that new step is following. So you can route the first step in a line and then move them around by saying which step they're going to follow.
If anyone has any questions that they think of at a later time, you can always email them to info@sbsgroupusa.com, or you can always find more information on our website, www.sbsgroupusa.com. Alrighty, Allison, did you have anything else?
I don't think so. You can always
Okay.
submit if you do have questions. If you have this working on an earlier version, if you would like to test, we can allow you to submit a question to GP support, and we'll get back to you. If you need to look at what needs to be done with your system, let us know. We can get your customer service manager on hold of you for either a demo or additional information. Okay?
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.